examines the legal charges faced by rioters, including those who might be involved in the death of Officer Brian Sicknick. At 7, Joy Reid interviews Capitol Hill Police Officer Harry Dunn about whether the current security level is enough. Then at 8, Chris Hayes focuses on Republicans who continue to push the election lie that led to the violence. The insurrection 100 days later, tonight beginning at 6 on MSNBC.
Today marks 100 days since January 6th, when the Capitol was overrun by rioters looking to overthrow our democracy, a siege that put a spotlight on extremism in this country and those who got into hate. But what about getting people out? The story you're about to see was weeks in the making, with almost unprecedented access to what it looks like when families reach out for help. It's not like you can just deprogram extremism. It's a long and complicated and layered process. You can't just push a button. But you can make a phone call. And these days, a lot of people are. For one nonprofit, more people than ever before as they look to find hope over hate.
Hi there, this is Parents for Peace. Can you hear me okay?
The phone keeps ringing at Parents for Peace.
Do you know if he's been a part of plans to incite any violence?
Their mission? To get extremists out of hate groups. And they've never been busier.
When COVID happened, our helpline tripled. This year had been astonishing.
Executive Director Miriam Churchill says it's not just the pandemic.
Did the events of January 6th have any impact on your helpline that you could see?
Yes, we thought that was going to kill us because we didn't have the capacity, but we had to take every single call. The helpline number was just hot, hot, hot.
On the line, people who want to help their loved ones out of all kinds of extremist ideologies, from white supremacy to Islamic radicalism and more. Each one different, but the group has found the root causes often seem similar: past trauma, grievances, psychological vulnerability.
Hate is really, truly addictive. I think people that are using hate, they are self-medicating themselves with hate. The same way someone is medicating themselves with drug and alcohol, I think it's an addiction.
It's why they do interventions these days on Zoom.
Because look, we agree, your husband needs help.
And we were granted rare access to listen in as their caller joined on speakerphone.
Yeah, and I appreciate the support.
We are obscuring her identifying details, but can say she wants help for her husband, who drinks, goes online, and sinks deeper into hate.
He would say things that doesn't really value life and just kind of say that, you know, if half the population were wiped out, like, you know, things would be better.
In your situation, was there a point when you saw that your husband was getting increasingly radicalized?
Yeah, I would say it was after the Capitol riots. I kind of let him have it, you know. I kind of was just laid down the law and said, like, you know, I don't want to live with somebody that acts like this or thinks like this. It's impacting him in a way that is very scary.
She searched and found the Parents for Peace website, which features a photo of a former white supremacist.
I saw him and I thought, like, wow, like, if only I could just get him in the same room with my husband, this is what might be able to reach him better, you know.
That person is Chris Buckley. He says he joined the KKK in 2013 after he left the Army following a bad Humvee crash and got addicted to painkillers, then crystal meth.
I ended up, you know, talking to a guy who was a recruiter for the KKK. The higher up started to realize, like, hey, this guy's got military training. So then it was like, hey, how do you feel about being into the security aspect of this?
You were actually training other members of the Klan to fight.
Yep.
A 2015 documentary shows Buckley with his then preschool-age son.
White power!
I was grooming him. You know, I mean, my son's always been a daddy's boy.
If he saw you giving the white power sign.
He threw a fit until we made him a robe that matched mine. And I was completely okay with it.
By 2016, his wife had enough and reached out for help. Within weeks, another former white supremacist showed up at Buckley's door for the first of many intervention sessions.
It was the most, like, agonizing, exhausting, emotional roller coaster that I've ever been on.
So talking to somebody who understood where you were coming from, talking to somebody who had been in the movement like you, helped you connect with him.
It did, but in the beginning, it was, I used the same rhetoric that I'd used for everybody who had left the movement. Race traitor, coward. It's all this craziness that, that you're ingrained with, you're indoctrinated with.
So how long would you say it took you to exit extremism?
A year afterwards, I'd still find myself, I'm still learning today.
Buckley himself now does interventions for others.
It's a dream come true every day, to be able to give back to an organization that literally saved my life. For every one that I recruited while I was in, I can take 10 more back.
He knows it's a complicated process that can take many months and relies on trust. That's partly why Parents for Peace prizes its nonpartisan status, hesitant to even take government grant money. New research shows stigmatizing extremists or punishing them can be counterproductive, according to the RAND Corporation, where experts interviewed 24 formers, as they're called.
My takeaway from the study is that there's hope. We heard a lot of amazing stories of people that were really in the thick of hate groups. And, most of the people we talked to came out of it.
That process often starts with families reaching out to groups like Parents for Peace.
We are guiding families to be first responders. What we are trying to do is to equip them with communication skills and language, the do's and the don'ts. And for instance, don't fact check them. Don't get into the confrontation because you are not going to do anything. Let's take a look at the underlying issue that they are not speaking about, but actually going via hate.
It's why they help people who love people who hate. Siblings, children, or spouses, like that anonymous helpline caller who's separating from her husband.
This is a shock to his system, but it's starting to have the effect that I hoped for him, is that he's reaching out for help now. Although they are infected with the disease of alcoholism and hate, addiction, there's the part of that person that I did fall in love with and I do care about. That's why I'm trying to do what I'm doing with love, because what else can combat hate better than love?
For her, now it's hope over hate.
If somebody you know or love is involved in extremism and you need help, we want you to head to our Twitter page at Hallie on MSNBC. We're going to post resources from groups like Parents for Peace, some of the research that you just saw in that story. Back in Indianapolis, we are just minutes away from more information, with officials set to hold a news conference on that mass shooting that killed at least 8 people. We're going to bring live coverage to you when it happens in just the next couple of minutes. Plus, President Biden today welcoming Japan's prime minister to the White House in his first in-person meeting with a world leader. We're live there with the clear signal the president's hoping to send to China and North Korea. But first, it is 100 days after that siege on the Capitol, and our NBC News Senate producer and friend of this show, Frank Thorpe, assembled a photo essay, portraits and interviews of lawmakers, staffers, workers, and police officers who were there that day and still processing the trauma. And that's what one Capitol Police lieutenant shared, opening up about what it's been like for her after January 6th and her shock as the violence escalated around her that day.
The crowd is using munitions against us.
Probably what sticks with me the most, and there were many, but what sticks with me the most is inside the Lower West Terrace door. The lock got breached, and I don't know, maybe it was 60 or 70 of us trying to just keep them from getting in through the door. And it literally and figuratively, it was forever. I mean, it was just pushing, pulling, fighting. I couldn't get that close because at that point I was tackled, and they stole my helmet, took my helmet. They tried to get my gas mask. It was all these surreal things, like, this cannot be happening. This cannot be happening. This cannot be happening. But it was. I have moments. It comes back in like flashes, and it's hard to not have it with you every day. For those of us that work at the Capitol still, we're still working at our crime scene.